All right, welcome to Leadership Series. My name is Dr. Krishan, and this is an initiative of STEM to Innovate, Leadership Series 2.0. This is an initiative that started almost 2 years ago just to focus on empowering the community members, highlighting some of the wonderful things happening, not just limited to the community locally, but also abroad. And we're very much excited to have our today a very special guest with us, who is already here, Mr. Yaffie, the Clements High School principal. I would like to give a bit of a background of Mr. Yaffie. He has been instrumental to Fort Bend ISD, especially the success that I've seen over the years, especially in Fort Bend ISD. So just to give a background on Mr. Yaffie, as those individuals who are watching, Mr. Yaffie has been a principal of Clements High School when it opened up in 1983. Mr. Yaffie has proudly served almost 35 years of his education career in Fort Bend ISD. He taught since history at Quail Valley Middle School for 10 years, serving as a science department head for 3 years. He was named Quail Valley Middle School teacher for the year in 1993, and he's became an assistant principal at Clements High School in 95, and served as associate principal of Clement High School from 2001 to 2005. And he served as a founding principal of Baines Middle School, where he served until the return to Clements in 2013. He has earned a Master's of Education degree in Education Administration from Bachelor of Arts degree in Biology from University of Texas at Austin, and completed his Master's degree. David also listed as Who's Who Among America's Teachers, and earned membership in Phi Kappa Phi Academic Honor Society, and he completed Summer Leadership Institute at Harvard University as a Principal Center in 2013. He has presented numerous conferences and workshops over the years. He has served on Region 8 Academic Decathlon Steering Committee, FBISD's task force on reconnecting at Risk Youth, and served as coordinator of FBISD Academic Pentathlon. Mr. Yaffie currently serves on FBISD design team for COVID-19 as a committee member, and current chairman of FBISD's Technology Steering Committee as well. Mr. Yaffie is named Administrator of the Year by National Business Education Alliance in 2007. This award was recognizing outstanding work of instructional technology by students and teachers at Bain Middle School. And Mr. Yaffie was named as the FBISD's Secondary Principal of the Year in 2012 at Baines and in 2020 at Clements. So these are amazing accomplishments. And without further ado, Mr. Yaffie, welcome to Leadership Series.
Thank you, Kashan. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And it's really a pleasure to reconnect with you and to be here tonight.
Absolutely, likewise. I always have followed your leadership, and one of the individuals I look up to personally, and I've seen that the impact you have made, not just limited to the students, but also the staff, the teachers, and also the community members. That is remarkable. And we want to also highlight some of that and talk about some of that as well. So today we are living in unprecedented times. A lot of individuals are calling this new normal. And this is sort of becoming as a keyword in everybody's conversation, talking about the uncertainty of tomorrow. I know that there are a lot of individuals, parents who have lost their positions, jobs, and it's sort of like a bit of a interesting times that we live in. Definitely, even though there are uncertainties, but there are also opportunities to also learn from the time that we have specifically today with our families, and these are definitely precious times for all of us. So I'd like to hear your perspective, Mr. Yaffie, on this uncertainty that every individual have, the community members, the parents, the students. There's so much that is taking place in the individual's mindset right now, and every individual is looking up to the leaders right now, and they want answers. So what's your current perspective there, just to get started?
Sure. Uncertainty is not something that most humans are comfortable with. It's not a factor of change or growth. But just uncertainty about what's coming next. And I can speak to that on a personal as well as a professional level. The personal level is that this is not a very good year to have a high school senior living in your house. And I'm sure many of the parents in the audience have lived through the same thing that I have. Or if you have a college senior, that might even be worse right now with the uncertainty in the job market. So I've watched my own child as a high school senior in Fort Bend, as well as the 658 seniors at Clements High School over the last 12 weeks deal with this uncertainty. So what I think is so important is that while there's uncertainty to our traditional settings, there is certainty about many things. The certainty is just on a basic level, most of us will wake up tomorrow morning and still be here and still be working towards a brighter future. So we have certainty that we are going to continue. Humans have lived through pandemics many, many times in our history, whether they're global pandemics or localized. They don't last forever. So for kids, which is where my main focus is, we have to be really, really positive with them that this is not the new normal. The new normal is not that you're always going to be in a pandemic. It may last longer than people think, but it's not forever. So how can you use the experiences that we have right now to make yourself better? And really, that was my main message to seniors, whether it was in email or at graduation a week ago, was that this experience that they're going through right now will hopefully, they might not see it at this moment, but will hopefully make them more agile, more adaptable to unexpected changes that are definitely going to happen to them again in their life. Hopefully not on this scale, but that's relative. What's minor to one person is a major catastrophe to another. So that's really been my message for kids is live through this, continue to stay focused on your goals, and you're going to come through the other side more adaptable to change, more adaptable to things that are unexpected. Because if you make it through this, you can probably make it through just about any unexpected catastrophe that will happen to you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Yaffie. I think you really have covered a very important point here that we got to be agile and we got to pivot in these tough times. I think it's about adapting to change. And that's one of the qualities of a leader, to be able to adapt to change and then at the same time make the change. If there is some issues and things that needs attention, we got to be able to start transforming those particular areas. So talk about, Mr. Yaffie, that I know that everybody's talking about digital transformation and this online learning concept and this whole thing about this reform possibly needed, maybe where things have sort of speeded up. Maybe this COVID was more of an opportunity for us in a way, if we look at it positively, that things starting to quickly transform and rapidly change, especially in the educational world. We never seen administrators, principals working from home. We never seen teachers working from home, and that has been very interesting, especially as I've seen over the years myself, that working from home is pretty interesting. So especially in the world of education. So talk about that. People want to hear, what are we going about, especially in the academic year coming up? How's that going to start impacting students' learning?
That's a huge topic, of course, and you asked a lot of really important questions in that. So I'm going to back up and try to go through it in a logical way. As far as the opportunity part and finding that silver lining, so to speak. You remember, because you and I, for the audience, full disclosure, you and I were colleagues for a few years, and you'll recall that way back when we were talking a lot about the importance of modernity, the importance of modernizing our schools, because for over 100 years, schools really haven't changed that much. My grandparents could walk into Clements High School and they would know they're in a school. It wouldn't seem that foreign to them. They'd walk down the hall, they'd look in the classroom, they'd see desks, in most places arranged in rows, and a surface for the teacher to write on, and a teacher's desk. They know it's a school. And that is a problem, because our grandparents shouldn't have feel like, oh, this looks just like my school. That's a problem. So we talked a lot at Baines about the importance of becoming modern. And over the years, I've amended that just a little bit. And now what we talk about at Clements all the time is that it is our job to engage our students in modern and relevant learning experiences. Modern and relevant learning experiences, to engage the students in those. If we can do that, then we're going to be in a great place, if it's modern and it's relevant. So over the last 20 years, we've seen things make their way into the teachers and the administrators' lives that were different than our grandparents, of course. Computers, that's the most obvious one, right? But the actual act of instruction and the act of the learning tasks for the kids really haven't changed terribly so. And that's not good. So this right now has accelerated. COVID-19, I believe, is going to be the catalyst that will move everybody forward, not just in learning about technology, but in that part that I mentioned, engaging our kids in modern and relevant learning experiences. So yes, I hope that this does this. I don't think we will go back to schools exactly the way they were. I hope not, because this, to me, this boils down, Kashan, to something really important. Public education is at a really critical point right now, because if we do not grow from this, and we do not get to a point where we can offer families more options and more flexibility, they're going to find it elsewhere. And public education cannot afford to lose kids, our most important resource. We cannot afford to lose kids to other entities because of over simple things like flexibility and choices and options. So I hope that we will see a permanent existence of online choice for kids, whether it's their complete educational experience in Fort Bend or part of it. This is happening already all over the world. Colleges are embracing this and have been for some time. Different states in our own country have done things over 10 years ago that Texas has only done in small little pieces. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, my answer to your question, that we need to come through this, just like I said about the kids. We need to come through it as an institution, more adaptable, more modern, more relevant for families, so that we're not losing our best resource, our children, to other entities because of us being stuck in the past.
Thanks for that perspective, Mr. Yaffie. Really appreciate it. I would like to take our conversations forward, especially now that some parents have lost their jobs in the community. And I know that specific Clement High School, there are individuals and families that may have also been impacted, I'm pretty sure. A lot of school districts and schools in particular, different communities have been impacted majorly with this COVID situation. How are we going about ensuring that individuals, if we were to move and transform towards online learning, are there going to be devices and the technology in place, just basic necessity of Wi-Fi provided to students? Do you foresee that happening in the future?
Great question. Public schools have served communities in many ways beyond the education part of schools, and that's not going to change. And it's probably even more important now. Our district had a few advantages after spring break that helped us adapt faster, not perfectly, but faster than some other districts. The resources were, number one, we already had a learning management system. We've had Schoology as our learning management platform for a couple of years. Not every teacher was or is an expert in Schoology right now, but at least they already knew it existed, they knew how to access it, and had been doing that to some degree. So that helped us a lot. The other big resource that we had is that we've undergone a huge curriculum rewrite over the last couple of years. And all of our units have been fleshed out and are all there for teachers to use right in Schoology. So while we took a couple of weeks to really plan carefully before implementing online learning, we already had those great resources in place. Now, that being said, no one expected Fort Bend ISD to magically wake up over the course of a weekend or even a week or a month and have a world-class model of online learning. That's impossible. It would take a company probably months, if not years, to design a truly world-class online teaching environment. So I'm proud of the work that our team has done and our teachers have done, our kids, parents, really everybody in the community to get us through that end of the year. Moving forward, we have been ever since spring break ended, the district and various teams has been working to design what might we be looking at in August. Because August 12th is not very far away, first day of school for next year. And we know the kids will be ready, the parents will be ready, the teachers are ready. And right now we don't know exactly what environment we're going to be in. But we have been planning for every possible scenario you can probably think of, from fully back regular school to the other extreme, which nobody wants, but we know it's a possibility to still be fully online. And then, of course, the most challenging but most creative place is in the middle, some type of hybrid model to where kids can safely come to school in whatever numbers we will be allowed to do, while also having supplemental work online. So we don't know yet. The governor, the commissioner of TEA has not made a declaration. I suggest to the community members watching to please stay informed with school board meetings. We have one coming up this Monday night, as a matter of fact, next week. And if you can't watch the meetings, they're recorded. And you can always find the transcripts and the minutes online on the school district's website. So a lot yet to be determined. Now, to get into some of the nitty-gritty, you asked about technology and technology access. You know, I believe that Wi-Fi access is just as important of a home utility as your water being able to turn on. Now, we're not there yet as a country to think that way in its entirety, but we're getting closer. Our district's technology team did an extraordinary job in distributing hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands, I believe it was thousands, of laptops and devices to families. We would love to be able to make sure that every kid will be able to have a mobile device next school year if they need one. They don't have one of their own. Every kid, not one per family, but every kid. That's a big task. But we are working. They're working to try to make this happen. Don't say you heard it from me that it's guaranteed, because that's not what I'm saying. But we know that if we are still in an ongoing global pandemic, that technology access has to move to the forefront of our resources.
Thanks for that perspective there, Mr. Yaffie. Really appreciate that. I would like to further add on to some of the things you mentioned about the technology and the transformation that's taking place. How do we see that every student's getting differentiated instruction in the class from home, possibly? That the teacher to student ratio and having that classroom possibly on a particular platform. Are we going to be ensuring that every student is instruction and the learning is not going to be impacted? And I know that this would be sort of an experiment, especially with the new academic year. I know that we don't have all the answers, but what is your vision there?
Yes, we know that that's super important. We also know that we're not doing it perfectly. We did not do it perfectly in the end of this past school year, term 4, but we did learn a lot. Ideally, it would be great if we were in a hybrid situation to where kids, if their parents approved, would be able to access school at some point safely with protective equipment in small numbers, but the kids who needed extra supplemental support or special services that they normally receive at school could come up to the buildings and have those services done. But it's very, very challenging right now with the resources that we have to say that every kid is going to have a fully personalized learning experience. It's not even possible. But that doesn't mean that we're not growing in that direction and growing to a place where, like I said earlier, people have the choice to take some classes online while maybe still engaging with their school face-to-face. So let's think about, if we could right now, post-pandemic. What would be really exciting, and I think welcomed by many, many kids and their parents in our community, is if we had a virtual presence, a permanent virtual presence that students could take advantage of full-time or maybe just part-time, that they take a few classes online, but then they go to their school for the rest of their day. And there's all different kinds of reasons that kids might want to tap into that option. But I think that that's a very critical part of Fort Bend's future.
All right, Mr. Yaffie, we have about 2 more minutes into the session. We can take some questions as well. What is your key advice and for students that are graduating, especially right now, the seniors and the ones that have already graduated? What sort of advice do you have for them in terms of attaining particular skills? What is your perspective there?
Well, as I said in the beginning, there's the life experience of what they're going through right now. They don't see that as a skill. They don't get a grade in it. It's not generating a line on their transcript, but it will pay off. So to add on to that, I would just say that they have to stay focused on their goal. That's and that's true also of us as an organization. We have to stay focused on what our goal is, what is the purpose of our existence. And for our organization, of course, it's learning and it's teaching kids. And we've got to stay focused on that. For individual students, they need to stay focused on what their dreams are and what their goals are, even if they don't know, as most 18-year-olds do not know what they're going to be for the rest of their life. But they need to stay focused on wherever their mind is right now and what they're really interested in, what they are passionate about. They need to stay focused on that. And if their college doesn't open in the fall and they're in online college in August, they still need to stay focused and they need to make the most of it. And they need to expand their ability to collaborate online, to expand their ability to create and to learn online. Because that's not going to go away. Post-pandemic, we all live online to a certain extent. So that's what I've been telling my daughter this whole time. We don't know if she's going to get to move in her dorm in August and start school, but she's already collaborating with future freshmen in college and getting to know them, and they're doing summer book studies and all kinds of things to continue staying focused on the long-term goal.
Excellent. So now that we can open up questions for the members who are watching, we can certainly take some questions there. I know that we earlier were sort of engaging on some of these areas, especially that the parents that you see have lost their job. Do you have any particular message for them? What is the Fort Bend district or the county is doing about it? We had KP George earlier who came to the leadership series. He's a Fort Bend County, and I know that he's working really hard to ensure that there is some funding is provided, and I think they have sort of secured some of those. Is there a particular fund established for just the school communities specifically?
Well, in Fort Bend ISD, we have been able to pivot, a term we've used a few times here tonight, and to help families. Initially, the main thing that we wanted to make sure we were still providing for our kiddos is food. So Fort Bend has done an incredible job partnering also with different entities in the greater Houston area, namely the Houston Food Bank especially, in providing food for anybody who has come to our distribution points. They don't have to show proof that there are kids in Fort Bend ISD schools or their address. We just wanted to expand that to beyond the Houston city limits into Sugar Land, Missouri City, Stafford, all the areas that our school district serves, not Stafford, of course, and make sure that we were still able to provide nutrition. So we can't provide jobs other than the vacancies that we do have to people who lost their jobs, but at the very least, and it's not something that's minor at all, still making sure those kids and families are getting meals every day was a huge thing, and it's still continuing. That didn't stop when school ended on the 28th of May.
Great, thanks for that, Mr. Yaffie. There are some questions that came that I would like to highlight some of them. This is coming from Nabila Mansour. She's asking, what are the plans for the school this fall? And I think you sort of have covered that, and I think we can certainly, you can probably rephrase that in just a summary. And also, will there be smaller class sizes to help with the social distancing? Can parents keep children at home and do online if they don't feel comfortable with the situation? So I think you've sort of covered those areas as well. But yeah, go ahead, Mr. Yaffie.
Sure. I wish I could give 100% answers to those questions. If I were to do that, I might not have a job on Monday because that hasn't been determined yet by the school board, by the state, and certainly by our superintendent. We can sort of just think through the different possibilities, though, of next year. And really, at the most fundamental level, it's being driven by the pandemic itself. What is safe to do from the medical experts? How many children can we safely put on a school bus at one time? How many can we safely have in a building at one time? Will we be able to have marching band practice? Can we play football? I mean, this is Texas. You have to play football. Volleyball, we don't have the answers to these things yet. We know what we want, but we don't know the final answer. If we do engage in a hybrid situation where kids are partially online and partially at school, that would mean that the pandemic is still in too strong of a force to come back all the way. So yes, we would have to find a way to have smaller numbers of kids in a classroom at one time. The other parts, we're just going to have to wait and see. The football, the band, the extracurriculars, the final answer. I know some states have already made some declarations, but if you read carefully, there's the word "if" is in a lot of their language. So we're just going to have to see what happens. But rest assured, we have been working very, very hard to plan for any of those scenarios.
I think the beauty of this whole pandemic is that we sort of just have to live in this just agile process. I think we need to understand the agile methodology, just being able to adapt and make the change and learn from it, maybe fail fast and learn quickly and just refocus. I think that's the way I see it. I always ask all the guest members who come to the leadership series, who do you inspire as a leader in many specific areas? You can talk about which particular attribute of that individual that has sort of had influence over you, and you look up to that individual. You can name 2 or 3 or 1. It's your choice.
Well, people that have inspired me. Well, if I may, I'll answer two different philosophical ends. People that I have met and people that I have not met. So people that I have not met that for whatever reason, just I guess my DNA, right, have had a strong influence on me my entire life and that I have read much about and studied would be 2 people from many, many years ago in our country's history, starting with Abraham Lincoln, and a very close second would be Frederick Douglass. And really the things that amazed me about them is that they rose to leadership positions in the midst of circumstances that nobody would have wished for. No president before or since, and hopefully ever, will ever have to deal with a civil war. No person in Frederick Douglass's situation would ever want to choose involuntary servitude. But yet both of these people, from their own inner strength, wherever it came from, found ways not only to survive, but they thrived and still influence the world today. So that always amazed me on how they took the circumstances in which they lived and still developed skills, their passions. They stayed focused on the goal. They stayed focused on their mission. And so they've always inspired me and really, I think, led me to a career in the public arena. Now, on a much more personal level, a person who really inspired me, because I had no interest in being a school administrator when I started teaching, none at all. But I was very, very lucky, very, very lucky on the day that I got hired in Fort Bend ISD to be hired by a principal who was actually in his first year as a head principal, a principal named Mike Leach. And Mike was the principal at Quail Valley Junior High and then middle school. And then he was the founding principal of Austin High School here in our district. He's the only principal that I taught for. And undoubtedly, if not for his influence on me, I would not be having this conversation with you today. And the reason why is he worked with passion. He worked extremely hard. He was very creative, ahead of his time in many ways, and he had fun doing it. And the people around him, his immediate assistant principals and department heads, they all had the same approach to our school and our school's community. And that was, we're going to work really hard and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And that made a huge impact on me and made me decide to change my pathway and look at educational administration as a future. And here I am.
Awesome, Mr. Yaffie. Thanks again for your amazing perspectives and insights on all of the things that you provided for the members who are watching and some individuals who are going to be watching later. Really appreciate it again, your time, and thanks for all the great advices. I always looked you up as a servant leader of practicing servant leadership, providing the services for the community for so many years. You have definitely been a veteran who has provided and made a huge impact in the communities, and especially with your instructional leadership style and your community leadership is definitely remarkable, and we really salute you for all the great work you have done for the community.
Well, thank you, Kashan. And just as a side note, I'm also extremely proud of you. And you always used to pick my brain and ask me lots of things, and I'm just so proud of you. And it's a great honor to be sitting with you today and having this conversation, and perhaps we'll do it again someday.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, sir. All righty. Good night.
Good night. All right. That was Mr. Yaffie, David Yaffie, principal of Clement High School. I definitely see him being the next superintendent of Fort Bend ISD with all of the wonderful things that he has done. I definitely see that he has made a huge impact for all of the wonderful people that are in the Fort Bend community, especially that I personally have seen and continue to look up to Mr. Yaffie for all the wonderful things that he's continuing to doing. I'd like to end on a very much important point of reflection, which is that we have to have embrace mindset, an infinite mindset, which is to be able to see and the change and be able to embrace the change. And that will allow us to look for those opportunities so that we can continue to make a difference. And crisis definitely leads emergence for the leadership. And this is definitely a quote of John Maxwell, one of the gurus of leadership, and also Simon Sinek, who has talked about know your why. And we must know your why, especially in the times that we're in today. If we don't know our purpose for today, we better find out quickly what is that our purpose. On that note, thanks for watching. Really appreciate everybody's time and feedback. This stream would be live for you, and you can watch it later as well on our STEM to Innovate page. And thanks again for watching. Take care. And we'll be connected with additional folks on Leadership Series soon, so stay connected. Take care.